Alrighty. You can all see my screen, correct?
Yep.
All right. Well, I call this meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. Let me pull up the participant list because I cannot see everyone. Alrighty. That was not what I wanted to do. Okay. I recognize that Acha is present, Aaliyah is present, Joshua is present, Liam is present, Pooja is present, Rahman is present, Siri is present, and Victor is present, as well as ex officio members Zachary, Candace, Courtney, Tori, and Rashad. And then Brian is here. He's for now a member of the undergraduate population. All right. Hopefully you've all had the chance to look over the agenda. I know that I sprung a change on you guys last minute, but you know, that was a last minute decision. So is there a motion to approve the agenda for today?
I move to approve the agenda for September 1st.
I second that.
Are there any objections? I hear or see no objections, so by general consent, the agenda for September 1st has been approved. Now we can look at the minutes from 2 weeks ago, the 18th. Just going to scroll through like usual. And that's it for those. So if there's a motion to approve the minutes from August 18th.
I motion to approve the minutes from August 18.
I'll second that.
Are there any objections? I hear or see no objections, so by general consent, the minutes from August 18th have been approved, and I hand over the floor to Zachary for elections.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm going to call this, election order at 5:34. And we've already moved to elections, and we're going to send out a form for you guys to figure out, I'm mistaking this for the second time in a row. We are going to open the floor for nominations. So in the chat, you guys can nominate yourself or other people, and then we'll move to the people that are nominated to accept or decline, and then we'll move from there, whether it's a period of discussion or ballot. All right, we have our first nomination. Sierra, do you accept or decline?
You need a second first.
I need a second, okay. Second for the nomination, or, okay. I can't second it.
Second.
Thank you. Awesome. I appreciate that, Liam. So, Sierra, do you accept or decline?
I accept the nomination.
Awesome. And I'm going to leave the floor open for another minute and a half for any other nominations. And in that meantime, I will get the form ready. Look at that, me multitasking. And it looks like I'm only able to view and take that form, Candace. I can't actually
I
edit
can do it. You go ahead and do what you do then.
Gotcha.
I can do it for you.
Apologize about that. I appreciate it. You're fine. All right, so now we're going to enter a period of discussion for Sierra. And if anyone would like to take the floor for that and start, I would appreciate it. I guess I can get the ball rolling in terms of the discussion. Actually, should we have a second to move to a period of discussion, Candace? Yes, okay.
I second that.
Thank you, Pooja. So we're gonna start off this, I guess, for me, and then you guys can take it from there. Sierra, how has it been over the summer, and what have you learned over the summer being chair, and how do you plan on going forward from that into the incoming year?
That is a great question. Over the summer, I definitely learned how to be more confident in myself, especially in the position. When I first started, I was like very nervous about how to go about a meeting and how to get the agenda done in the minutes. But I definitely feel a lot more comfortable and confident in the position. But another big thing that I've learned is that this board is definitely not solely like the chair or the vice chair's role. It's definitely everyone's job to participate and trying to instill a sense of community while still being virtual, while others still have prior commitments over the summer and not being able to join in the meetings. That was a little bit of a barrier to get over, but I feel like we're at a good spot now, where everyone has the ability to participate. And going forward, I definitely want to make communication a big part of finance board because over the summer, we had some issues with reaching out to clubs and orgs about what's happening with the budgets, what's happening with Sahas and off-campus and on-campus requests. So I definitely want to make communication a forefront for growth, learning for all of us on the board, as well as just trying to maintain that community on the board, as well as with student clubs and orgs.
Awesome. I really appreciate your responses about that. And I hope things get, smoother as the year rolls out. I have no doubt that they will. Anyone else want to add to the discussion, ask any questions to Sierra? Or just overall comment about how the past summer has been?
I would like to go. I have an easy question for you, Sierra. How excited are you to be our chair again?
I'm pretty excited. I love this board. I love all of you and the work that you've already done. And I'm glad that I get to work with you guys, even if it was just as a representative. So,
Hey, Sierra, how do you plan on balancing finance board on top of your other academic and extracurricular obligations?
definitely, if you look at my calendar, I have set aside study time for academics, and I already have my office hours on there for the liaison system. So, I don't expect to be having appointments every week for the full 4 hours, I think, for office hours. So if I don't have appointments, I will definitely use that time to, finish finance board stuff, figure out what needs to go on the agenda, or, reach out to clubs and orgs if they need it. I'm also working part-time, so I haven't experienced that yet. This week is definitely a very hectic week for me in terms of academics and finance board, but yeah, it's just a matter of setting that time aside for myself and figuring out like how my week is going to look.
Besides finance board and your part-time job, are there any other organizations or extracurriculars that you're a part of?
Currently, I'm not a part of any like taxing clubs and orgs, if that makes sense. I am a part of the Red Cross Club, but a lot of the stuff that we do is on campus, so they're still working through trying to figure out a virtual format. But I do plan on rushing for the FIDE, which is the pre-med Greek Society. So that'll definitely add a lot onto my plate. But again, that's in the future, and I don't know how that's going to look for me yet.
I really appreciate how many people stepped up and talked. We're finishing the form right now, and we're going to send it to you shortly. Give me just a moment to do that. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to send that to you guys right now. It's going to be in the WebEx chat.
So you do have to end your period of discussion
Gotcha.
and then move into a vote.
Gotcha. Move to end period of discussion.
I second.
And move into a vote.
I second.
All right.
Okay, so the link is in the chat and only voting members of the finance board can click on that link and vote. So that's anyone, the finance board representative position and the VPSO and the treasurer. So go.
Wait, I thought this was for
It
chair.
says vice
One
chair.
says vice chair.
Oh, does it say vice chair? It's for chair. It says it's for chair. I'll edit it.
Okay.
So Candace, I think I updated WebEx and the link isn't showing, the chat option isn't showing for some reason.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same question. I don't see the chat.
Yeah.
You join from Teams or from the calendar?
From Teams. I joined from Teams.
You're gonna have to join from the calendar so it can open up as a WebEx meeting. But
I started sending it to you guys through Teams. I'm wondering who still does it?
I can send it through Teams.
I just got it. Thank you so much, Zach.
Yeah, of course. I tried to do that really fast.
Does it still say vice chair? Because when I click on it, it says chair.
I immediately switched it as
Oh, thank you.
trying to get faster at stuff like this because I know I need to pull my weight. Thank you, Candace.
Sure, you're fine.
And the total amount of votes that we should have, Candace, I'm not a math.
Nine. You should have 9.
Awesome.
Don't open it on here. I don't know who was sharing their screen.
Okay, we have 8 so far. So whoever hasn't voted, please vote. All right, we have 9. And by unanimous vote, we have Sierra Dubuque. I apologize if I got that wrong. Super apologies. Sierra Dubuque as our chair for finance board. So everybody give her a round of applause. Congratulations. All right, and from here on out, I pass the baton to you, and we are now going to be on to our assistant chair position. So take it away from here, Sierra.
Vice chair, yeah. No swearing in or anything?
Oh, yes. Yes, you need to be sworn in.
And on the list of things that I keep forgetting to do, give me just a moment while I pull that up. And it is right here. All right. Sarah, just repeat after me. The SGA oath of office. I do solemnly affirm.
I do solemnly affirm.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of chair of the undergraduate finance board of the UMBC Student Government Association.
The office of chair of the undergraduate finance board of the Student Government Association.
And will.
And will.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
Promote and defend.
Promote and defend.
The interests and well-being.
the interests and well-being
of UMBC's undergraduate students.
of UMBC's undergraduate students.
And now I congratulate you and thank you as chair of the finance board. Everybody give a round of applause. Awesome. Now you may take it from here. I do apologize again.
You're completely fine.
The vice chair elections.
All right. So now we're going to move on to vice chair. Does anyone have any nominations? Second to Aaliyah's nomination. So I'm going to assume that since you nominated yourself, you accept the nomination. And now we can move into a period of discussion. So if anyone would like to make that motion. Candace?
Are there any other nominations?
Sure. Are there any other nominations? It looks like there's a nomination for Acha. Is there a second? I don't see any seconds, so that nomination will die. Unless somebody, I heard. No? Okay. Any more nominations? All right, I don't see or hear any more nominations, so I motion to enter a period of discussion on Aaliyah as vice chair. A second. We need a second. All right. Thank you, Pooja. I saw that you were in the chat, so would you like to go first?
Yeah. I only have one question for Aaliyah, and that is, how many classes are you taking, and how do you plan on allocating time that this position requires?
Currently I have 19 credits, but I'm considering dropping one because I don't think I'll need it for my major. But for me, I like to color coordinate my stuff. I don't know if you guys could tell from the previous liaison system list I made, but so I have on my calendar, I color coordinate my stuff, and I like kind of have like a lot of my times allocated. So like basically I just kind of plan my schedule for like the week ahead of me, and I just kind of make sure I meet my deadlines. And then I have a journal, so I put my deadlines in my journal, and I kind of just make sure I meet my deadlines. I'm kind of somebody who likes to I'm a hard worker, so basically I just like to push through and do everything that I have to do. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you for answering.
Joshua?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment and then I have a question for Aaliyah. My comment is that I was very impressed with her over the summer and how attentive she was to the needs of the finance board, how organized she was with the liaison system, and then also how frequently she came to the summer steering committee meetings. And I feel like that really does show dedication because that's 2 hours on a Sunday that you have to take out of your schedule. So that's just what I wanted to share with everyone. And my question for Aaliyah is, from your work that you did over the summer, what, if any, projects would you like to continue to work on throughout the school year?
I think I don't know if I have any projects that I think I want to make, but I think I really like Candace's idea of the liaison tracking. I'm not sure if everybody has been keeping up with that, but basically, when people email us and they have one of our groups emails us about something they have as a question, we basically keep track of it so we can kind of see what their needs are, and basically we track what everybody's questions are overall. And I think I would kind of want to like go in deeper into that and like maybe like addressing that and like looking at like maybe like a weekly of what the concerns are that people have been like reaching out and like maybe seeing how we can tailor our liaison system to like better make sure that that we have these questions answered, so then like next time they won't have these questions because they already have all the information accessible to them. So I kind of just want to work more on that because I thought that was really a good idea, and it's kind of a good way to hold yourself accountable and like to keep track of everything you're doing, because you have to like go back and look at your emails and put it in the system. So I really like that.
Thank you.
Acha?
Okay, I just had a question about your schedule. So when you say your 19 credits, how many of those are like, like intensive courses like, Orgo or like are you a STEM major?
I am not a STEM major. I'm a social science major. So a lot of my classes are humanities, and then like I'm taking math classes, but they're very like intro, and I kind of already know like the subjects because I've taken calculus in high school. So it's kind of like lower level maths, but like just to make sure I have my college credentials, I guess kind of like, yeah, college says I'm good at, this basically.
Okay, well, it's good to hear.
Are there more questions or comments for Aaliyah?
I have a comment, but I still can't figure out the whole updated system. But Aaliyah, thank you so much for not just creating, as Joshua said, for creating the liaison system, but also the tracking system, and for also keeping us updated and making sure that we are all keeping in touch with our orgs. Because I had a rough time over the summer keeping in touch. So thank you so much for everything you've done. Seriously.
I can't take credit for the liaison tracking. That's Candace, but well, you're welcome for everything else.
You're too humble.
I have a question for you, Aaliyah. Based off of your role as the summer vice chair, what would you take away most from working over the summer, and what do you hope to continue with for this semester?
I think as coming into somebody who's never been in SGA before, like I haven't been at FYA, I think it's really important just seeing like how well versed and like knowledgeable everybody was. I think it's really important to like take the time to refresh like what you don't know or what you're not like sure of, just to make sure you're prepared, and also just to prepare for meetings and to make sure you are kind of on top of your stuff and you're like ready, because for me I was kind of confused a lot at first because I was like, whoa, what does Sahas mean? Like I don't know what that means, like what are all these terms? But I think like another thing that I learned is that this is all a learning process. Every day you're going to learn something new and you're going to kind of become more comfortable doing something. So I think those are my big takeaways, and I kind of want to just continue to grow and become a better um, liaison to my orgs and to be a better finance board member throughout the year.
All right, thank you. Any more questions, comments, thoughts? All right, I'm not seeing anything, so if anyone would like to move to end this period of discussion, then we can move into voting.
I move to end this period of discussion.
I second that.
Any objections? I hear see no objections, so by general consent, we are ending this period of discussion, and there needs to be a motion to enter a period of voting.
I move to enter a period of voting for the vice chair position.
Second.
Any objections? All right, I see or hear no objections, so by general consent, we are moving into a period of voting. I believe Candace has already sent out the secret ballot. Maybe? I thought I saw it in my email. It says vice chair, but I'll check it real.
Yeah, I sent it to you so that you can see the results. But hold on, I don't know if I finalized it yet. Hold on, let's see. Vice chair, hold on, don't go anywhere. And here we go. I can copy that. I'll drop it in the chat. And I'll also drop it in WebEx team. And again, same people are eligible to vote.
Has everyone voted? Just a thumbs up is good.
Yeah, it looks like we're missing 2. 8, we're missing 1.
Alrighty, we have all the votes, and by unanimous vote, Aaliyah has been voted as the vice chair. So everyone, nice round of applause. And Zachary, if you would not mind sending me the swearing in transcript, unless it's somewhere in the SGA shared drive, I can find it.
It is. If you just type in oath, it'll pop up. You can grab any one of them and then replace whatever the position is with vice chair of the finance board.
All right, Aaliyah, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, you're just going to repeat after me, all right?
Okay.
I do solemnly affirm
I do solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of Vice Chair of the Finance Board
the office of Vice Chair of the Finance Board
of the UMBC Student Government Association
of the UMBC Student Government Association
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
promote and defend
promote and defend
the interests and well-being
the interests and well-being
of UMBC's undergraduate students.
of UMBC's undergraduate students.
Alrighty, congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations too.
Thank you. All right, well, now we can move on to the rest of our agenda. I will start sharing my screen again. Everyone can see the agenda, correct? Alrighty. Just gonna open a couple things. All right, so next on our agenda is the budget. This is something that we should have done last week, but I didn't know about it. So hopefully you all had a chance to look at it. Frankly, we only have to look at the club budgets and our totals right here. But if Siri or Mershad would like to talk about the budget a little bit more, you guys are free to take the floor.
Sure. As you guys know, SGA only charged 50% of the student activity fee this year around, which is equivalent to $250,000 or something around that cut to our budget. So me and Siri and Candace sat down and looked at all of our line items, see where we could pull it from and where we couldn't. We also contacted a bunch of campus partners that we allocate money to annually, and we asked them if we could reduce some of that money allocated, especially for this semester. So if you go through the line items, you see that everything's been reduced by about 25%. We tried not to touch, any of the budget for next semester, just because we don't know what's happening next semester, right? So that's that. If you guys have questions about any specific line item, I'm here to answer it, but we're pulling out about $83,000 from our reserves, which is honestly really, really, really good, because previously, if I'm not mistaken, Candace, we were pulling out about 50,000. Now we're pulling out 30 extra thousand, and with a 25% budget, with a 20% cut, I think that's amazing. So do you guys have any questions, any concerns?
Would we like to enter a period of discussion?
I move to enter a period of discussions.
Second.
Any objections? I see no objections, so by general consent, we are entering a period of discussion on the SGA budget for the fiscal year 2021. I guess we can start out with any questions for Mershad or Siri. Pooja?
I don't have a specific question, but I think I read Mershad's comments, and one of the comments was made for the DVDs for a library. And I was just wondering, agree that streaming is more popular these days? Like, if it's okay, why don't we keep them? Just a general question.
I think that was one of the adjustments that the previous executive board made, and it's been like that ever since. We didn't make those adjustments.
Brian, would you like to go?
Can I speak? All right. Hey guys, my name is Brian. Sorry if I don't know the procedure, so I wasn't sure when to talk. But I was wondering what the reserves are exactly. Like, does the NBC have like a big reserves for it, or like separate in case of emergency kind of thing? What do you mean by reserves?
So this is SGA's reserves. It's basically carryover over the years for the student activity fee that was not used by SGA. The number right now, if I'm not mistaken, is roughly around 350,000 in our reserves. But due to the COVID situation and everything, we're from that.
Gotcha. And is that in like an interest account or just sitting in escrow kind of thing?
No.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Of
course.
Thank you, Zach, for coming. Have a good night.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everybody.
Are there any more questions for Mershad or Siri? If not, I do want to bring to your guys' attention that as of right now, the adjusted draft for 21 is 180,000 for the club budgets. I want to give you a number that is not finalized yet because there are some things that I have to go in and look at, like undergraduate turnout and attendance. But as of right now, before any changes regarding registration fee reductions, the off-campus total is $13,225. If you remember from previous discussions, we were planning on keeping the round about 150,000 for spring 2021 and using the rest of that for Sahas and semesterly budgets. Or not semesterly budgets, but any Sahas allocations. So if you would like to discuss that, that is up to you guys, but.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I got a little bit lost towards the end.
Yeah, no problem. So I did a bunch of calculations over the weekend for all the off-campus events that were allocated funds last semester, but since then the Dr. Brown statement and not being able to spend state dollars on traveling and lodging, we have some cuts we had to make. So the total for off-campus events is $13,225. And as you may remember, we were trying to keep and not touch the 150,000 for spring 2021. So that leaves us, I don't know how to do that math off the top of my head. So about like, you know what? Any of you math majors, any of you guys taking math classes? And we also requested for 200,000. So we're 20,000 less than what we wanted, but we can definitely work around that.
I think that's a good point, Sierra. But again, we've reduced half of our student activity fees, so I understand if we're getting 20,000 less than what we asked for.
I think they'll leave roughly around 17 grand for the fall outside of, I don't know if that's the correct math, but 150 for the spring, that's 30 grand for the fall. 13 of that is 13 and a half-ish is off campus. So roughly around 15 and 7, between 15 and 17.
Yeah, it'd be about 16,500 with that math.
Sierra, if I could make a point. Sorry, I can't type because I'm driving right now, but if I could make a point. So, I just want to let everyone know that the number that we have for club budgets is not an arbitrary number. It's not something that me and Siri were like, oh yeah, let's just do $180,000. We did some calculations for that. We looked at the expenditures based on semesters and based on on-campus and off-campus events. And the number that we had for fall on-campus events, we just took that out. We just reduced that, and the remaining number is 180,000. So I think it was $120,000 that was allocated to the on-campus events for fall, and that's the number we took out. If I remember correctly, it was fall semester has 60% of the 65%. 55% of the total year's expenditure, and then 60% of that expenditure was on on-campus events, and that roughly, was around $120,000, I think. So that's the way we arrived at that number.
Brian?
I had a question. You said it was 180K for off-campus events. What kind of clubs are going to be getting that? Like, what kind of events? Since everything's like virtual.
So all off-campus and on-campus events are canceled by the university this semester, right? If any student organization has an event on or off-campus, they're going to lose their recognition by the university. So that way, that's why I think does that answer your question? So that's where that money,
like, what are they going to be using the money for, basically?
Mershad, I can answer that. It's so the 180,000 is not specifically for off-campus events. What we are referring to with the 13 grand is orgs that are competing, and those competitions are happening virtually, and they still have registration fees for those. So they're not happening necessarily off-campus, but in a normal year, they'd be traveling and going off-campus for those. So they're still considered off-campus events, but they're happening virtually. The 180,000 total is for anything that could potentially happen. So we don't necessarily know what to expect yet with that.
It's allocated basically, but not budgeted yet.
Yeah, so it's reserved to the side for student organizations, but they outside of that 13 grand-ish for registration fees, nothing has been allocated to any specific student organizations.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions, comments, discussion points? Ali would like to move into voting. Yeah, there needs to be a motion to end discussion.
I move to end the discussion for summer 2020 SGA budget.
Second.
Second.
Are there any objections? All right, I hear seeing no objections, so by general consent, we are ending the discussion on the budget. Is there a motion to approve JL or JR? I can't see it. JL, okay. Is there a motion to approve JL 06-2021 for voting?
I move to approve JL 06-2021.
I second.
Third. Any questions? All right, I see no objections to the general consent. JL 06-2021 has been approved for voting. Since it is a JL, somebody from Finance Board needs to be a sponsor, correct? All right, I motion to amend the document to add myself as a sponsor.
Second.
Yeah.
Any objections? Here, see no objections to the consent. I'm amending this document to add myself as a sponsor. And now we can move on to voting. Everyone did have a chance to read through this, right? I'll take general consent of silence, yes. All right, so this is voting for approving the budget. Again, we'll just have your answers typed in the chat. So all number Finance Board members for. All opposed? There are only 5 votes in chat. I just want to make sure everyone has voted.
Yes, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave the meeting and come back because I can't see the chat option and it's so I'll be right back.
Quick question, Rashad. What is this annotation request?
My effort of trying to find a raise hand button. I apologize.
I'll just get rid of it then.
Rashad did raise his hand.
Yeah, I didn't know if I could acknowledge him while we were voting, but go ahead, Rashad.
Never mind. I can wait. I can wait.
You sure? Okay. Raquel, did you get a chance to vote? Okay. And I didn't see anyone opposed. Is Siri abstaining because she came up with the budget?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to vote because it seems a little biased, but if I am, then I'll vote.
Typically you do.
Okay.
And there's no one not present. So this budget has passed on this day of September 1st, 2020. So congratulations, Mirshad and Siri. And with that, that is done. So I can get rid of that off my screen. And you'll see that we have JR03-2021. This was brought to us before, but it has been amended, so we'll look at it. And Joshua, if you would like to introduce this document, you feel free to.
Yes, as Sierra said, this is the same JR in essence that we already voted on. But when I took it to the Senate, they wanted the language to be changed and updated to where this recommendation or this like directive currently stands. So that's what I did. I changed the language to better fit with changes with the government. And then I also just added in the point that this speaks directly to Section 5E of the UMBC strategic plan, because I wanted to uplift the fact that this is something that we promised that we were going to be working towards.
Thank you.
I'm happy to take any questions about it, if you have any.
Okay, so yeah, besides the update to put in the strategic plan, can you read out what you said you updated?
Yeah, so the second whereas, where it says the original directive has been rescinded and modified to say that new international students are the ones that cannot take online only courses, will have their visas revoked. That's in addition to it. The strategic plan as you highlighted, and then some minor changes in the beginning with the original whereas, just saying like more specifically what the ICE directive was.
Pooja?
So I see that it says that the goal of having this joint resolution is to make sure that students are getting proper representation. What efforts is it SGA that is going to be making that efforts, or will it be IES that will be making the efforts and we'll just be supporting them in that? And I think I asked this question last time as well, when you said that it's good to not have too much clarity on it. But I just wanted to know this: like, are we making initiatives, or is it IES that is making initiatives to support them?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was actually raised in the Senate when I introduced this yesterday as well. And my response to them basically was saying that this is one, telling the SGA stance on the issue, and then two, it's creating a bridge for us to work with IES to help to come up with some initiatives, come up with where we can advocate for these international students. Just because I would hate for SGA to prescribe a solution to these issues, and none of us are really facing the burden of what it is that the directive was originally saying. So I think that this is like the best first step in helping to address some of these concerns without prescribing something that may at the end of the day be incorrect in facing some of these issues.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me.
Yep, and to follow that up, tomorrow, if depending on what happens with this vote, tomorrow I will be sending an email out to some staff members and administrators in IES to say, hey, this is what the SJ has come up with, and what potentially could we do to help you with your efforts in uplifting the experience of international students at UMBC.
And just to make sure, we're not talking about any financial support, or are we?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Siri?
Yeah, well, Joshua kind of just answered my question. I was gonna say, what will be like your next step after this is passed?
Yeah, like I said, going and speaking to IES to see how we could potentially help. And they may say that, hey, we have it completely handled. Thanks for taking a stance on this. Or they may say, hey, we need you to speak at this event or talk to this administrator or something. So that's really the next step, seeing what the needs are from that end of the table.
Are there any more questions for Joshua? All right, I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so we never entered period of discussion, so we don't have to end that. But is there a motion to approve this JR for voting?
I moved. Go ahead.
Sorry.
You're fine.
I'm through JR 03-2021 for voting.
I second that.
Are there any objections? I hear see no objections, so by general consent, this document has been approved for voting. Again, leave your votes in the chat, so all members for? All members against? All right, so we have 8 for, 0 opposed, 1 abstaining, and 0 not present. And this document has been passed this day, and my dogs are happy about it. Alrighty. Congratulations, Joshua. And Halloween. So, last thing on our agenda is a discussion on per person cap for registration fees. If you've had a chance to look at SurveyMonkey recently, you may have seen some points of discussion on an application, specifically FBBR-127. So if you would like to pull it up on your own screen, go ahead, but I'll have it all up on here. So this basically stems from a request that was apparently $50 per person, and there was some discourse asking whether or not we should put a cap on registration fees given the circumstances, and knowing that we'll have roughly about $17,000 now for Sahas and SurveyMonkey requests. So I just wanted to open this discussion up to you guys to get your thoughts about this issue. So I motion to enter discussion on a per person cap for Sahas requests.
I second that.
Tori, the event is the mock trial. It's a competition, Great Chicago Fire Invitational, and it's, what's the allocation? Where is it? 50 per person registration fee.
I think it was 400 total.
Yeah, a total of $400.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering if it was a competition or a conference mainly. So thank you.
Okay. Are there any objections to entering a period of discussion? I see or hear no objections. So by general consent, we are entering a period of discussion, and I see Pooja in the chat.
Yeah, so when I was reviewing this request, the application, sorry, the first thing that came up to my mind was A, the number of requests this club has made. B, would it be better to have a cap of how much you will be allocating for per person for registration fee? Because the numbers that we have currently, the funds that we have currently, I think it would be helpful to have that cap so that we know, we have an opportunity for everybody. Like, we're considering everyone. If you're just not having any cap, people will come in, will approve it. Okay, that's done, and then next thing you know, that you don't have enough funds for the other clubs that are coming in. So I just think it will be better to think about to have max per limit that you can ask for registration fee. Now, counterpoint that can be made against this is that we're not funding anything else. We're only funding registration fees, and that too for virtual events. And I think it's a valid point, but yeah, I just wanted to bring it. Like, I think it would be better if we have the cap.
Tori, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I just thought it might be helpful if we can give some background as far as typical costs of events like this and registration. There is no budgetary statutes in Sahas, especially under competition. It has been talked about with conferences, but last year, this is the Great Chicago Fire one, correct? The registration was $2,000 total versus 400, just to put in some perspective. So I'm not influencing one way or the other, but rather giving perspective on previous years. There has never been a cap on how many competitions, sorry, I could not think of that word, competitions an org could apply for. There has been discussions about how many conferences you would fund per semester, but that's usually been semesterly that discussion comes up. As far as this event, it is an invitational, correct? I would double check with them that they're officially in that. I know that is something that has come up before with things that are invitationals, if they have to qualify for that. But as far as maxes on competitions, the only thing I think that might have been considered is if they're sending 2 teams, how many teams you send per organization. So something to keep in mind, if it is mock trial, they do have to have a minimum or maximum amount of people in order to compete. So just things to keep in mind when you're thinking of numbers as far as capping them or whatever you decide.
Brian?
I just had a question, informational. How many requests does the finance board usually receive for funds or registration stuff?
Usually between 1 and 200.
And there's usually not money at the end, right? Or
usually that some rolls back. They try to allocate as much as they can. I'd say I think what would be a better judge is that they have been able to, for the most part, fund everything that's come in the past couple years based on statutes. So all on campus is more so where a lot of those requests come in versus off campus competitions, and conferences are usually the only thing that get cut a little bit.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
I would also like to put in that this is all for the Sahas request, which is a first come first served basis. And I understand that we want to have an equal allocation representation of student clubs and orgs, but if clubs don't get to us through Sahas, then you could, as their liaison, push them. But Candace?
I think, so I understand the conversation around, wanting to have a limit, and I also understand the conversation around first come, first serve. I do know that you all have a limited amount of money, and are trying to make the most of it. So I appreciate this conversation, and I want to caution you all to not get sort of stuck in a roundabout, and sort of present yourself with some options and then have to make some forced choices, I think is what I'm trying to say. Because you can debate whether or not to have a limit, not have a limit, but the sort of act of voting on whether or not to do that, I think, is the first step. And then deciding, okay, so if we don't have a limit, then we don't have a limit. But if we do have a limit, what's the limit? I think that's the first, that's the advice I would give you, is to make a decision as to whether or not you want to have a limit. And then if you do want to have a limit, what is that limit?
Thank you, Candace. Acha?
I actually, I I don't have anything to say right now.
That's fine. Brian?
Hey, kind of going off Candace regarding the limit wise. It's I don't know if you guys have thought of this, but maybe instead of like monetary limit, it could be like a percent limit of the total. Maybe that's an idea.
I don't know if finance board has ever done a percentage, Tori or Candace.
Yeah, they have. So in the past, it hasn't been for registration. It's been more so for travel and lodging.
Okay. Joshua?
Sorry, I could not find the mute. But I was going to say, like, I don't have a suggestion as far as the per person amount, but I think that like my whole thing is it's difficult to make decisions like this under such financial constraints because when I'm thinking per person, I'm thinking, hey, we have a very limited budget, so it should be low. Like when I was looking at $50, and I know that these conferences and these competitions, like you can be paying like $200, $300 per person. But I was like, we have such a limited budget. This seemed like a large request. So that's the only thing that I really wanted to offer to this. Like, if we do make a decision now of per person, I think that the conversation should be revisited and it shouldn't be put in stone as like a precedent moving forward, recognizing that our budget will be different once COVID has ended, hopefully soon.
Tori?
Yeah, so one thing, and Candace, you might have some more insight on this. The precedents do state that you fund per person in regards to competition and I'm not sure if it says competition. I think it does say specifically competition. That's where my eggs are in that basket right now. So what that would mean is when you're looking at a request, specifically when it comes to travel and lodging and registration, the finance board was looking to fund to make sure a person could completely go versus only that person they pay a percentage of it. So instead of saying, yeah, we'll pay all your registration, but only 50% of funding or travel and lodging, that one person still has a financial burden, if that makes sense. So I'm assuming, and Candace, correct me if I'm incorrect, I'm assuming this would apply in this case because it is a competition that you fund on the basis of per person, not a percentage. So in that case, you'd have to say, how many people are we willing to fund and fund those people fully?
Yeah, so the language is funding percentages per person. So you can fund at a percentage, but it's still on a per person basis, if that makes sense. So
So an idea, looking at the chat and what Siri said, the $50 per person seemed large at first, but then Toy said in the past it could have been like up to 2,000. What you could do is you could do percentage per person and then up to a cap per event. Does that make sense? Like a percentage per person up to 20 participants per event.
with that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Candace.
Okay. Yeah, so again, the question is, do you want to have a limit, yes or no? And then if so, what is that limit? And you could vote on one and not the other, right? If you need more time to sort of formulate some ideas and do some work outside of this meeting. But I think at least you could say, do we want to have a limit per person? You do have precedence for a per person limit for on-campus events. You have a $33 per head per person limit. And essentially all of your events are the same at this point because they're all virtual. It's just it depends on who's hosting it. So you could say we're going to have a per person limit across the board. But I mean, now we're going down a rabbit hole. But I do think you could at least vote today on, do you want to have a limit for off-campus, like hosted virtual events, yes or no? And then if you need some more time to figure out what that limit is, you could do some brainstorming outside of this meeting. And then when you're meeting with mock trial, if you put them on the agenda for next week, that would be when you could decide on the actual number. I don't know.
That sounds like a good plan to me. Pooja, I saw you in the chat.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment about the percentage thing. If we do, well, the first question that we need to answer is, do we want to have a limit or not? And if we do, whether do you want it to be a percentage? But the problem with the percentage is you don't know the total fees they will be asking for. Let's say some might ask for $25 per person, some might ask for $80 per person. But if you go for percentage, it will be 80% of $25 and 80%, let's say if we have an 80% person, 80% of $80. Now, the numbers that will give you is it's going to be it. In my opinion, it wouldn't really make much of a difference because if you are funding 20% of $80, it's still a huge amount. So, in my opinion, I think we should consider having a number limit. But before we do that, yes, as Candace said, we need to decide whether we want to have a limit or not.
Aaliyah and Siri and Acha, would you mind us doing a quick straw poll? Or do you have points you would like to make before we do a small vote?
Oh, I was just gonna like ask a question to Candace for like thinking points if we do make a limit. I know for on campus it's like 33 per person, which that came in my mind when I was reading this. I was gonna ask you, how did we come to that number just for thinking points?
Sure. So that number came from the like thinking about, okay, what is the maximum amount of money a student org like reasonably could be spending on an event, right? And that number came out to about $10,000, right? Like if you're putting on a really big event and you're a student org, what's something you would say, okay, that seems like a lot, but I could understand how they could get to that. It was $10,000. And so then they took that number and they said, okay, where would they hold such an event? The ballroom, right? And they said, all right, how many people might be there? Seated maybe at tables, 300, right? So then they said, what's 10,000 divided by 300? And they got to 33. So that's how they
Okay,
did it.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. This should be totally different since it's online.
Yes,
So.
it's all kinds of yes, and the expenses are all kinds of different. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Aaliyah said she was fine moving on to the straw poll, but Acha, you still had a recognition in the chat.
Is the straw poll for voting? Are you like voting on whether we want to have a cap?
Yeah, just the very basic. Do we want to work with a cap or not? So.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say that like I'm against the cap just because we still have like the option to like we get to review every Sahas and we get to like talk to the club. So I feel like I don't know, I feel like the cap might be doing a little bit much when we still have the option to like put notes and recommend and discuss like on a case by case basis, especially because we're working on in unprecedented times. And I feel like the cap might just be a lot of thinking for not that much effect. Because again, we're assuming that we're running like that there's going to be a lot of like competitions because this is just for the off campus funds. So yeah.
I put the order in the chat, but Aaliyah, you can make your comment.
Okay, I also agree with Acha. I wrote some notes because I kind of need to write stuff down or I forget. But like kind of like how basically like how the mock trial funds previously, like when we, everything was normal, it was like $2,000. So now like the registration cost kind of dropped to like 400. So I feel like a lot of orgs too who would be requesting money for like events that would have been like more expensive, during regular times, the cost would drop too. So I feel like it's kind of going to be, I mean, I'm not good with math, but I feel like it would kind of be proportional to the budget because, like we would normally pay 2,000, but now it's dropping to 400. And so other groups requesting money for events, their costs will drop. And I feel like it should be also reviewed on a case by case basis because like mock trial and stuff, it's like competitions. It's not like a conference. So like, competitions are good for UMBC and they like make us look better. So I feel like, we don't want to limit these type of organizations because they kind of like overall help the school because if they do well we look better, we get more money, like stuff like that. So yeah, that was my comment. I'm done.
Pooja?
I think that was a great comment, Aliyah and Acha. But I just wanted to add one thing, and that is if we do case by case basis. So let's say we're saying one org that we're not able to fund you because your application fees is apparently a little too much for us to fund. And that's how you would deny a request when you're doing a case by case basis and you're not okay with the amount that they're asking for. Now, the problem that might occur in this is that how would you, wouldn't they feel that it's unfair because we didn't give them a cap? We didn't tell you that you cannot ask for more than this. And we just denied that request because we felt that it was a little too much to fund. And the second thing that I wanted to ask it to Candice, and that is, can this cap be limited just to the financial crisis that we are in? Can we have it only for a year or maybe a year and a half, and then remove it once everything goes back to normal and once we're asking for a full student activity fee?
Yeah. If it's you can have it be for the semester and just sort of put that out there to student organizations, be like, while, for the fall semester, we're having a limit because we have limited funds, and then reevaluate in the spring. You could totally do that.
Just to kind of, Pooja, give you some insight, I guess. You don't have to completely deny a request for an organization. So let's say kind of how you're saying, like an org comes in and it's more than maybe finance board can afford. You can still award them money. I shouldn't say award. You can still allocate them money at a percentage. You don't have to fully deny an event because it's more than you can afford. Orgs are really good about asking for as much as possible and not expecting to get all of that. So it's not necessarily you get all of it or nothing. You can work within that to what is affordable. That's kind of, a lot of orgs already go off of that thought process of I'm going to ask for the world and expect only to get a piece of it. So just a thought moving forward.
Rahman?
Yeah, to echo on to both Ali and Acha, I honestly don't think we should have a cap because if we're considering just for the fall, we have to understand that we're only funding events that are virtual, both on campus and off campus. And if you can, if all of you have kind of reviewed the Sahas applications, it's mostly registration fees from both mock trial and moot court as right now, I think. And I think that it's really unfair to put a cap on something, especially in the circumstances that we're in. And the only events that we can fund are registration fees for virtual events. I think putting a cap on there would discourage, organizations from even asking for registration fees.
Brian?
I was curious about the denial process for clubs usually. Is it mostly like a back and forth exchange, or is it just like a letter saying, nope, we're not giving you the money kind of thing?
Yeah, so for the Sahas process, typically what happens is the student organization is invited in to do a small sort of informational presentation, and then the finance board members asked that student organization questions, and then a vote is taken typically on the request. And if they are denied funding, they know right there in the meeting. And then they're typically sent an email or some sort of notice that they were denied funding. If they receive funding, they're sent a notice that says, here's what you received, and here's how you can spend it.
And with the denial, does it say it's because you guys asked for too much, or just we won't be funding?
It typically is just it depends on the process. So for the semester, the finance board has two processes. Then the one we're talking about right now is called the secondary ad hoc allocation system, which is for one-off requests. And then and that one would really be just like you received it or you didn't receive it, because the student org is typically in the room during the conversation and they know the reasoning why they did or did not receive something. For the semesterly budgets, which is when they ask for things a semester ahead of time, and those are the bigger ticket items, those typically have some reasoning as to why a request was approved or denied. But all of those, so the last year's finance board did all of those requests for the fall semester. They did them in the spring for the fall, but as was shared, all of those events were canceled. And so all of that money rolled back to the finance board, which is part of the reason why the SGA reduced what it was collecting from students for student activity fee, because they couldn't actually give out the money that they're collecting. So
Gotcha. Yeah, so I think Pooja's got a point then. It'd be good for clubs to have a bit of a gauge to see how much they can ask for or should ask for, especially for organizations that aren't as experienced with finance board. I'm sure like organizations that's been back and forth with finance board, they know around how much they could and can't get, and they'll probably get funding before other organizations. I had another question. How often are funds left over at the end of the semester? Or like around how much? Yeah.
Do you mean that roll back that like isn't spent?
Yes.
Usually we over allocate on purpose by about 10% and we get pretty close to breaking even. I don't know an exact amount, but it's usually not like a ridiculous amount that's left over.
Around 10%, so around 33,000 normally, and this year maybe around 18,000. Okay, thank you.
Joshua?
Yeah, my point is going towards whether or not we should cap this. I think I said this earlier, but my vote is to cap it whenever we do take that. And I think that straw poll would be the best thing for determining that. But for me, it's really about setting expectations, right? So we don't want a student organization to try to say, hey, we want $10,000. And we're just like, no. Because we really don't know what our semester budget will look like next semester, right? We don't know what that will look like. And so we have to put those expectations in place and be realistic, hoping that it doesn't get to that point where we have to deny anybody, but saying, here are the guidelines that you can work within, and we're willing to accommodate for X, Y, and Z. But beyond that, we need to be prudent and make sure that we're protecting the budget for next semester. So that's just my 2 cents that I wanted to add in.
Siri says let's vote, but Pooja is right before that. So I'll take Pooja and then we can decide whether or not we want to do a vote.
Thank you, Sierra. I just wanted to add one last thing, and that is that because we're taking Sahas and it's first basis, I understand what Rahman, Acha, Siri, and Alia's point is, and yes, those are very strong contradictory points that you can make with this argument. but I think this could be a good way for a finance board to make sure that we're thinking about every organization. Like, we're making sure in our way, we're not saying that we'll fund all of them or we'll fund only those who come first. Yes, it's first come first basis, but if we have some like limitations, that's when we're telling them, okay, we did our part, we made sure that we're thinking about all of you, but now it's up to you whether you want to apply for it or not. That's just that I wanted to add.
All right, thank you, Pooja. All right, so we're going to do a straw poll. This is solely for whether or not we want to cap. So option A will be we instill a cap for per person registration fees. Option B is we don't instill a cap. So you can let me know in the comments chat. Who hasn't voted? All right, it looks like the majority is for option B, not to instill a cap. So basically that's just where we go from here now. So no cap as of right now. And I guess that settles our discussion for today on this registration fees and stuff like that. So if anyone has any more questions, comments, thoughts before we move out of discussion, Aaliyah?
I think that for a cap to be like made, like there would need kind of a more of a concrete idea of how it would be, because for me, there wasn't enough information on how the cap would work. Like maybe if it was like for people who are applying for conferences, there's like this percentage considering COVID and like our budget, and then people who are trying to do a competition. But like, yeah, right now it's not a lot of information. So maybe in the future, hopefully not, we will need to cap it. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Joshua?
So as far as I know, like vote has already happened, so there's no going back. But CRQ like clarify what the intentions of the vote were. So just to make sure that everyone's clear, because I think I got it of like the vote is, do we have a cap? Do we not have a cap? But what I think I heard Aaliyah saying was that she wasn't sure how the cap would work. And I feel like it wasn't to say like this is what the cap will be, but it was to say we're going to further the conversation. So Sierra, can you just clarify that for me really quickly?
Yeah, before Aaliyah's comment, it was just a run-of-the-mill, like, this is how we're going to deal with registration fees. So based off the options that I presented, we were going to go through the rest of the semester without a cap. But if you would like to have this discussion, we can totally have that, because I know that wording can get a little tricky. Does that answer your question, Joshua?
Yeah, I think just clarifying that this was like to further the conversation of if we had one, what would it look like, was beneficial. So thank you.
Yeah, I only would have prompted a discussion on what it looks like if everyone wanted it to happen, wanted the cap. So if that makes sense. Siri?
Yeah, since we're still on Sahas, or do we have to close this to move on to another topic on Sahas? Because I was going to ask about like, there was another request about merchandise I needed some clarification on. And also, I don't know if we're discussing merchandise funding in today's agenda or not. If we are, I can just wait till that topic comes up.
It is not currently on the agenda, but if you feel that it's important for this discussion, I am all ears.
Yeah, I definitely feel like merchandise funding should definitely be on the agenda. especially coming from our like prior conversation for our pre-meeting with Candace and Tori, because we mentioned that we don't have that much in our budget, right? And we're already discussing now if we should have like a cap on registration. So now I'm like even more overwhelmed, like, oh my God, should we even be doing merchandise funding really? And should we have like a lower cap on merchandise funding? I'm not sure if we're even gonna get that much request for merchandise funding, but I think it's a discussion to have.
Real quick, Siri, Candace says that we need to move to amend the agenda to add it, which I believe we'd have to end this period of discussion, amend the agenda, enter a new period of discussion. So I would like to get through, if that's something you would like to continue with, we can do that later, but Pooja has a comment in the chat.
I didn't have a comment, it was Acha, but I wanted to say something to the point Leah made and to having a concrete idea of how we're going to do it. I think, yes, we don't have that idea, but the conversation that we had was, like Joshua said, whether you want to have it or not. An idea can be developed as long as you agree for idea to be like if you agree that we should think in this direction, yes, we can develop it. But I think the voting was, do you want to think in this direction or not?
Would we like to do another vote to clear up any confusion? Okay, I'm going to try and word this in a way that isn't confusing. All right. How many options can there be in a straw poll? Any? Okay.
Yeah, you can have as many as you want, and then the ones that win out, you would do another straw poll with those two, like the top two, or the like, just as like a choice reduction.
I'd suggest typing them in the chat though if you're going to have more than one.
Yeah. Okay. Give me one. Pooja, we were just going to vote on the cap again to make sure that everyone isn't confused with the wording from earlier. You can change your answers after that one. And hopefully, if this is confusing anyone, please let me know.
What are the caps for?
Per person registration fees.
Sorry, for what registration? My audio keeps cutting in and out. Sorry.
Per person registration fees for competitions.
Gotcha.
And it's solely for competitions, not. It's solely for competitions, the cap that we're discussing now.
I believe so. I think Tori had mentioned earlier, like conferences versus competitions, but
Yeah, you normally prioritize competitions more than conferences. So if you're going to cap conferences or competitions, you certainly would have to also cap conferences since conferences are lower priority.
All right. Thank you, Tori. So for clarification, this is per person registration fee cap for competitions. Has everyone had a chance to vote? Also, Pooja, are you staying with your answer for A after option C was added? Okay. Can I vote in straw polls? Candace? Okay. It looks like we're missing one person. Okay. So. All right, so based off of what Candace said earlier, we are going to go with the top 2 votes for these options, and it looks like option A is not favored. There are only 2 votes for it. So now it's between, yeah, thank you, Siri. So now it's between option B or C. It already looks like a majority vote, but for those of you who haven't had the chance, I'll let you know. Unless the people who aren't voting already voted for B, in which case, to Pooja, I answered this to Siri's question earlier. I mentioned that this was just for fall, considering the uncertainty of spring. So like future means like the next couple weeks so that we can deal with these kinds of requests before we hit reviews for semesterly budgets. All right, it looks like a majority for option B, which is having no cap for now, but working on it in the future. At this point, this can be something we address in future meetings or outside of meetings. Preferably, I would like to do it outside of meetings just so that we can save the floor for Sahas requests when they do come in. Victor?
Yeah, so working on it in the future doesn't mean when we actually need those cap, just to be sure. So if we don't need them, we don't need to install the cap. Or if we do need them, we can.
Yeah, the work outside of the meetings will be figuring out, like, as of right now, there's no cap for per person registration fees, but if it comes up in a discussion again and we agree as a board to put a cap, that's what that work on in the future entails. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not confusing anyone. Aaliyah?
You kind of already answered my question. I just wanted to know, like, so like for now, like mock trial, we would like basically if there's no issue, we would approve them and stuff. So yeah.
All right, are there any other questions, concerns, thoughts? Pooja?
It's just a thought. How would it look if we come up with a cap in the middle of the semester and then we say, okay, we don't have the money to fund you guys, and so we're putting a cap. Just a thought.
Tori?
Pooja, that's what used to happen all the time. So that's not something new. They're used to that. The only reason it hasn't been happening is because of the them requesting their budgets a semester prior, but normally, since everything is first come, first serve, they know that that's the case. I don't like saying historically because, it was my 1 year that we did the normal version before this one. In the past, precedents can be set whenever. They don't have to be set at the beginning of the year. They've been set mid-semesters. So this is something that is not new to the organizations.
Can we move to end discussion on this topic?
Yeah.
Okay, I move to end discussion on caps. Well, what's the exact language on the agenda? On discussion per person cap for registration fees.
I second.
Any objections? I hear or see no objections, so by general consent, we are ending this period of discussion. Siri, would you like to discuss the merchandise fee, or do you think that can be held outside of the meeting?
I guess it depends what we have left on the agenda. If we still have like a lot on the agenda, then of course we can like discuss it outside the meeting. So I'm cautious of everyone's time.
There's nothing yet on the agenda based off of the pre-meeting. I was gonna add something to it.
We'd have to amend the agenda to add another discussion point. Just
So it's up to you, Siri, if you want to have it now. I mean, we can definitely have this conversation outside of a meeting.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Before we get to announcements, I said I was going to amend the agenda. This is just for like us as a board to check in with liaison system. So I moved to amend the agenda to add a new section called Finance Board Liaison Check-in, and to add the liaison.
I second that.
Okay.
Are there any objections?
I just had a question. Will this be a permanent fixture or is this just for this meeting? Permanent fixture?
Yeah, it'll become a permanent fixture, yeah.
So this is liaison board what?
It's just a way for us to check in every week on the liaison tracking system, how it's going with your orgs. Okay. If you've read any of the Senate agendas, they have an initiative check-in. So this is kind of like the same thing. All right. I saw some seconds. Are there any objections to this amendment? All right, I see or hear no objections, so I'm going to amend this document. And let me find the liaison tracker. Well, I guess we can look at it here, unless I need to add it to the agenda, Candace.
You can, just looking at it here is fine.
Okay. So the idea behind this is just to check in with basically everyone, see how it's going with contacting your clubs and orgs as a liaison. Kind of poking and prodding, saying if you haven't updated this tracking sheet, please do so. Aaliyah?
One thing that I thought I wanted to like share is that because I know one of my orgs, they had a question about it of like how many people can we have in our meetings and how long can our meetings be, because like other stuff like Zoom, they have a cap. So I think it would kind of be like kind of nice if we like just maybe sent out an email to our orgs, like, hey, for meetings, on Zoom, you can, on WebEx, because we're partnered with them, we can have up to 500 people in our thing, and there isn't a cap on time, because I thought that would be like kind of helpful, because I had an org that had that question of like, hey, like, can I have money to get longer meetings? And I feel like, maybe other orgs would have that question. Also, this information is on the WebEx wiki for UMBC, so if you want to look at it, yeah.
Acha?
I was just gonna talk about my orgs. So most of them have just been asking where to find the treasure training. So I've just been sending them the Panopto quiz, Panopto video, like the direct link, and telling them to be logged into their UMBC email. But also, is there any way we can see the sheet where it says who's been trained and who hasn't been trained, just so we can like give them that information?
Are you asking like who's taken the completed the quiz on Panopto, or who in SurveyMonkey already has access?
The former, because like most of like a few of the clubs have been like, hey, I'm a new treasurer, or hey, I don't know how to request, like what do I do now? So just like being able to let them know, yeah, I see that you've completed the training, this is what you have to do next, or yeah.
Yeah, so I can move that into Panopto, or I can share it with all of you on finance board, and then I don't know if I can like make a little video about how you check that. Would that work?
Okay, that'd work.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Because on Panopto you can see who completed the quiz. They have to get 100, so they may have been like, "Oh, I took the quiz," and be like, "Yeah, you got all the questions wrong. You need to do it again." So you can see like who took it, when they took it, how many questions they got right, and so yeah. But I can share that with all of you so you can see it in Panopto. Sound cool?
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Pooja?
I had the same question as Acha, so thank you for answering that, Candice. And the other that I have is, it might be a stupid question to ask, but I'm still going to ask. Do we have to write down each and every club's name when we're just noting that we send them the reminder emails, or can we just say all, like I've said it here in fourth line, in the fourth row?
I think it could be personal preference. I mean, if we as a board want to see everyone's clubs written out, I mean, we do have the division sheet. So if you're wondering who's the liaison for what club, you can always check that sheet as well. I don't know what it's called, Aaliyah, but it's there as a reference. Candace, was that it was good?
Yeah, I can't remember what I was gonna say now. I don't remember. Maybe it was like, for this sheet, is there anything that you sort of came up in any of your emailing with student orgs that you think other people should know about?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, if something comes up in like the middle of the week or something, feel free, and you need like anything answered, want to bring it to the board, you can always email all of us. And it might find its way onto the agenda. Rahman?
So I actually have two questions. So one of my orgs asked me if there's a semesterly deadline for treasurer training. I just said just do it as soon as you can, because it takes a certain time for you to get access to Sahas and everything. So thank you for that. And also, so I think Siri was talking about this earlier about merchandise. So one of my, I think it's TEDx Club, whatever, but they asked about purchasing a domain where they can post all of their, lectures, whatever. So I wanted to kind of ask if we've made a decision on merchandise, or I don't know if that's going.
Domain would not fall under merchandise. They'd have to put in a Sahas request for it. Merchandise is legitimate merchandise like t-shirts, lanyards, stuff like that.
Okay, all right, that's what I said. So hopefully we'll have someone like a request in.
Yeah, okay. Any other updates, questions about this, Pooja?
Yeah, so on the point that Rahman brought and the answer, I just wanted to clarify that will fall under the domain request will fall under virtual equipments, right? Or wouldn't they?
That would be up to the equipment committee to determine, and that's not something that's been determined in the past. So at this point, it would be an unknown until they talked about that.
Okay, thank you.
So does everyone understand like why I'm adding this?
Yeah, I think it's a nice addition, especially because a lot of the orgs probably have the same questions, so it's better for us to hear. Yeah.
I mean, if nobody has any other questions, updates, or anything, we never formally entered like a period of discussion. This is just kind of something to go over at the end of our meetings. But if nobody has anything else, we can move on to announcements.
I don't think it would be a bad idea to amend the agenda to talk about merchandise because we're only going to get more of those questions.
Okay. Let me just. Would anyone like to amend the agenda?
I move to amend the agenda to include a period of discussion speaking about merchandise.
I second that.
Are there any objections? All right, I hear or see no objections, so where would I add this? Just as its own new point? No. If I can spell, oh my goodness. All right, is there a motion to enter discussion?
I move to enter discussion on merchandise and marketing fee.
I second.
Any objections? I hear or see no objections, so by general consent, we are entering a period of discussion on the merchandise and marketing fee. Siri, would you like to kick us off, considering this was your idea?
Yes, guys, I'm grinning over here. But yeah, so I had like one the Sahas request, and then also when we spoke to like Candace and Tori earlier at the pre-meeting, we were discussing how like we have limited funding and should merchandise like be prioritized right now. And I also had a email from a org about purchasing merchandise. So I kind of would like to know what to tell people when they ask.
Pooja?
So if I read it correctly, do we not have the cap on the merchandise already in the budgetary statutes that says that they shouldn't be more than $300 in total and $10 per person? Okay.
Candace?
So I think around merchandise, because there is some limitations around shipping and distribution, I think there's some conversations that need to be had with SABSC to one, see if it's even feasible to purchase things like this for student orgs and then distribute them. I am worrisome about like the distribution and whether or not that would be considered like a student organization event, because they're like coming together to do something. And so I wouldn't want you to be, I would caution you against facilitating that. And I think, again, like I said, it's a conversation to be had with SABSC, because if SABSC is like, we don't have the capacity to be buying these things for them, they would have to buy it themselves and then get reimbursed, then that sort of answers part of your question. Then the second part of the question is, do you want to be facilitating the purchase of merchandise that then has to be distributed somehow, right? Either mailed or in person. And like, are you monitoring that? Probably not. Are they going to be mailing it? Probably not. They're going to be like, come to my room and get it, which then they're, that's just sort of defeats the whole purpose. So that's sort of where my mind goes with it. But like I said, before you make any decisions about it, and you can talk about like what your thoughts are on it pending SABSC, I do think you need to include SABSC in the conversation.
Pooja?
So just to clarifying it, it's probably somewhere in the budgetary statutes, but I can't seem to recall it. They have to order their merchandise through SABSC, right? They can't order it from anywhere on any other online platform, or can they order it from anywhere? Candice.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So they can order stuff from anywhere, right? But they have to first be approved to do it by you. And then they typically, if it's being purchased with a state credit card, it has to, well, not typically, if it's being purchased with the state credit card, it has to be delivered to a certain address. And for David Royer's credit card, that's on the 3rd floor of the Commons. If student orgs are buying stuff ahead themselves, so like you approve them for $300, somebody orders it online with their credit card, and then they get reimbursed, that can be mailed anywhere. It's so the limitation is around how it's purchased. If it's purchased with a state credit card, it has to be delivered to a certain state address. If I, as my club president, after we get approval from finance board, put it on my credit card, it could get delivered to my house. And then I could put in a reimbursement request to SABSC.
Candace, I put this in the chat, but I thought we don't do any reimbursements. I know that we don't in normal events.
Yeah, so we do reimbursements. Like, so say I paid for it, that we don't do retroactive funding, right?
There we go.
Or,
Yeah.
you don't do, yeah. So sometimes it's easier for me to put it on my credit card after we've gotten, as a club, after we've gotten approved by finance board, it's easier for me to just order it, or like I went to Wegmans and bought this stuff and then I'm getting reimbursed. So here's all my receipts. I didn't pay sales tax, good on me, right? You can go to SABSC. But yeah, you don't do retroactive funding. They can't buy something ahead of time and then come to you and say, oh, we bought this. Can you give us money for it, please? You don't do that.
Joshua?
Yeah, I have two things. So one, to the conversation of students being reimbursed, I feel like that might be putting some student orgs to a disadvantage, recognizing that some don't have the capacity for a member to just whip out a credit card and pay $300 for merchandise. So that's the first thing I wanted to add. And then the second thing is it possible that we extend an invitation to David Royer to speak about what the capacity of SABSC is for the next semester, just because I feel like that would, one, clear up this conversation, but two, other things having to do with that office in the future.
Go ahead, Candace.
He has asked to come to next week's meeting, or the week after's, the 14th. So that is, hey, you're reading it. So, but because we're 2 weeks out, I haven't told you. So, but yes, he wants to come to a meeting to talk to you all.
Pooja, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you, Josh.
Okay, are there any other discussion points? I've tried to bring up an example.
Yeah, I'm gonna say.
Kind of.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So for now, like, if we do get an email like, "Hey, can I purchase merchandise?" Should we just like let them do the request for now, since we don't have any like concrete answers? Or what do we tell orgs?
Aaliyah, is that wait till our meeting with David to just like to figure that out? Oh. Well, I guess that's for the board. Should we wait till our meeting with David Royer to discuss this? Pooja suggests that, like, if anyone asks, that we are working on it. I don't see anything wrong with that, but
Okay.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's wait till the meeting.
I think if they're putting in it requests, there's no reason they can't. And if you make a decision before you review it, then you just share that decision.
That makes sense. Joshua?
I was going to say what Tori just said of like putting in a request is harmless, especially just for documentation of saying like, hey, we're getting this many requests for question. Is it possible that you guys enhance the capacity of SABSC to work towards this? Or if it's a flat out no, it's a flat out no. But I think that having a request won't do any damage.
Sorry, I'm just jotting down notes. So, are we cool?
It's also safe though to say that we are working through if merchandise is feasible though. So I wouldn't not tell them that, just because if they are coming to you asking if they can put it in and you just say yes and not saying there might be some, we are working towards it, that could be a problem, but there's no reason they can't be submitting a request, same as Joshua said.
That sounds good to me. That was a really awkward long pause. I'm so sorry for that. So yeah, are we cool with this as a board waiting until not waiting until to tell orgs, but let them know that merchandise and marketing is uncertain for us and it might not be able to be fulfilled on our end, but we'll make that decision when David comes to talk to us in 2 weeks on the 14th. All right, I have a couple of yeses, so I mean, if everyone's cool with it, then I move to end discussion on the merchandise and marketing fee.
I second.
Any objections? I see or hear no objections, so by general consent, we are ending this discussion on merchandise and marketing fee, and we can move into announcements. So, anyone have any announcements? Aaliyah?
It's kind of loud in my house right now, but this is kind of not really an announcement, but like kind of a question too. So since next week is our involvement fest, and we have like our SGA involvement fest, I was wondering, like, kind of, do you guys know how that's gonna look? Because it's virtual, and involvement fest is normally like hundreds of people. So yeah, I just like I want to go. I have a class, but I want to go after my class is over. But I just don't really know how that will look and how we kind of would go as officers because it's kind of expected that we go. So yeah.
So I can't speak as to what SGA is expecting. I think that's a conversation with the whole board and Mershad and some expectations there. However, my announcement was going to be Involvement Fest anyway. So since you brought it up, I can explain how that's going to work. Involvement Fest is 4 days this year, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. It is next Tuesday through Friday from 12 to 2 is the live portion, but the fun part about being virtual is it's always Involvement Fest. So from 12 to 2 each day, there is a roughly around 60 orgs that can be going live. I'm trying really hard not to say in person because in person is my new word for virtual meeting. So each day from 12 to 2, orgs can be live if they choose to be. The website for Involvement Fest is already kind of set up, so you can see how it's set up by day and the Welcome Week website. But each day will, when you click on that day, we'll have each of the organizations, a link to their MyUMBC, a link to their space, and a little brief description about them. So if you're not able to participate and we're looking forward to maybe talking to some organizations, or maybe some of those organizations aren't participating in the live aspect, all of their MyUMBC pages should be updated with recruitment materials as well. So Involvement Fest isn't just next week, it's forever. And if you have any questions or have people that have questions about iFest, please send them my way.
I was also going to bring up iFest, but for the purpose of Mershad asking us to be there, that's more Mershad's thing. So if anyone else has any announcements. Siri?
Yeah, this was just like, I guess, kind of to get ideas. But I did talk to like the executive branch earlier about how or what we can do to assist students who are like have to either commute or work from home, but their home environment isn't like the most conducive to working from home. I know we brought up like reaching out to off-campus student services to see if they can like let us know which places are already allowed for students to go to on campus to work, like do study. And I think Zachary mentioned talking to comms department to see if they can like print out something like a diagram or something where students can already go. But yeah, I had like a good amount of people who have that issue, and I'm trying to figure out how to like address that. If you guys have any ideas.
I don't know. Oh, I didn't recognize myself. Sorry. Am I allowed to speak? Okay. This isn't really a solution, but I think another way to like kind of gauge how many people have that like type of situation would be to do like a survey. I know like UMBC kind of does like surveys on like, oh, how is on campus life and like what would you want to improve? So maybe a survey like that, if we could speak to somebody so we could see like what percentage of our student body is has that type of issue, and then maybe like that would be like a better way to be like, okay, we have this many people with this issue, what can we do to like fit those people's needs and like their location and stuff. Yeah,
That's a good point.
To answer Pooja's question, isn't there? I feel like I've received a survey from SGA and it's just, signal boosted out to like every single student on campus. Is that true? Candace, you're talking and muted.
I know I'm talking. My child is calling me from downstairs on my phone.
I thought you were answering. Anyways. Yeah. Aaliyah says that. Mershad, is that in response to this or your own announcement?
Yes. So sorry, I wasn't paying attention. So you guys are looking to send this survey to max population, like all undergraduates.
Yeah.
What is this survey again? Just sit quickly. I'm so sorry.
We're trying to like see like how many students are like having issues trying to find like quiet study areas and how we can address that concern for them.
I think that this is a great opportunity to utilize the general student email list that we get a semesterly email to. We could include that survey on that email, but it could encompass a lot more questions than just that, right? We could ask the student body whatever our heart desires, but it would have to be on that email. So that goes out to all the students. If you're trying to look at max population, that I think that's your best way.
Mershad, it was actually you next for announcements.
Oh yeah, quick congratulations to Sierra and Aaliyah again. Congratulations. Looking forward to working with you guys. Just a quick reminder, it's part of the Constitution and bylaws that the Finance Board and the Senate submit a monthly report, just so for accountability reasons and stuff like that. It hasn't been exercised in previous years, but we're going to exercise it this year just because an executive body, Department of Extended Connections, requires those reports to send out a monthly newsletter. So they're just due on the 21st. I don't know how you guys want to do this. Do you guys want to do this all together as a body, or if it's just a job for Sierra and Aaliyah? Yeah, so it's due the 21st of every month. That's just so the Department of Extended Connections has about 9 days to compile everything and send it out. If you guys have any questions about that, reach out to me and we'll talk about it. I just want to put that on your radar.
Thank you, Mershad. Where is Candace?
I wanted to remind you all that your stipend review committee reports, those start being due on Friday. And a reminder should go out into WebEx Teams, but you should also probably put that on your calendar and there'll be a link. Also, I wanted to signal boost a program that, two programs that B is working on. One of them she's working on with me. The other one she's working on with our colleague Erin Waddles. The first one is called Leadership Blueprint, and it's a 5-week course. It's once every 5 weeks. You meet with a cohort of other students to talk about sort of what you want your co-curricular experience to be at UMBC and how you can create a plan for that for yourself. And it uses something, as some of you who are in the land of computers it uses something called design thinking to really frame the work that we do in that, and sort of how do you design an experience for yourself, and then also design alternatives in case what you think is going to happen doesn't happen. And it's just a cool way to sort of think about like, what do you want to get out of UMBC? So I'm going to drop a link for that in the chat here and in WebEx Teams. B and Aaron are also piloting a program this year called the Multicultural Leadership Experience. it's for the fall, it'll be a series of programs that you can attend, talking about the intersectionality between leadership identity and your own personal identity. It integrates like a critical race theory and racial identity development, other identity developments. So if you're looking for something, a space where you can talk about what it means to be a leader in the context of your own identity and your own identity development, in particular, if you have a marginalized identity, the multicultural leadership experience might be something that you could look into. And so I'm going to drop a link for that in the chat as well, here and over. Well, actually, I don't know if I have a link for that. I'll check. But just different, I think, trying to find opportunities for you all to grow as leaders, and sort of, have exposure to other students outside of your classes and outside of these meetings, I think is I would encourage all students to do that, and I have you as a captive audience, so I'm going to do that for you.
Rahman.
Oh, I just had a response to Siri earlier about about her question about how students are doing at home. So surveys are great and so are mass emails, but I would also recommend using social media because I don't know about you guys, but if SEB or SGA usually like ask a question about like what are you guys looking forward to for the new semester or like questions for the incoming freshmen, people actually respond and people actually interact a lot, especially on like Instagram stories or something. So definitely recommend also utilizing social media platforms.
Pooja?
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar to what Rahman said, and I also want to emphasize on Tori's point that we're not encouraging them to be hanging out in campus buildings. So I think it's best if we, from the SGA, if our guideline is to motivate them to connect with each other virtually.
Yeah, I think that's like what I'm trying to figure out how to like. I don't mean like study groups when I mean studying. I'm saying like students are like trying to just find a quiet place to study like by themselves, if that makes sense. And at first I was thinking like Okamoka because I know they mentioned having like a conference room. I don't know. And he said if it wasn't being used, then a student could study there. So I was thinking about stuff like that that could maybe potentially be off campus and they could still like study in case like their environment at home isn't conducive. But no, I'm not trying to like have students like meeting up to study. That's not what I'm trying to do. So I guess I could just look into other like off-campus options and of course like talk to off-campus student services to see what they've come up with also.
Any other announcements? Pooja?
Just a quick suggestion. Can we have a Discord group for whole UMBC? Would that would make it easier for them to connect with each other? They have rooms in Discord, and you can connect with people and study with them. I know it's you'll have to work really hard to make such a Discord group. I mean Discord channel, but that's just a suggestion I wanted to make. Most departments are doing that these days. I know econ department just sent out the email promoting their Discord channel. So yeah.
From my experience, Discord gets hectic, but Rashad?
So I love that Pooja brought that up because I've been working on getting WebEx team spaces set up for individual classes for students to, have SI Pass there, talk to other classmates there. Also, if the class were to meet on a synchronous basis, they could meet directly on WebEx Teams. So that's something I've been working on. So, you know, good mind, Pooja, good mind.
Tori?
Just on the Discord level, I'd highly recommend sticking with Teams instead, because if there is any online issues, Discord, anyone can hide behind whatever their username is, versus on Teams, if there's any disciplinary or bullying or things like that that are happening, everyone's connected to their actual name. So actions can happen, especially since I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more issues that happen virtually now versus in person. So I think online communities are great as long as, if they are university promoted, that there's the ability to know who is actually participating. And in Discords, anyone outside of the university can join in, which is can also be like some wishy-washy areas to get into.
Pooja?
So to add to Tori's point, yes, I think I really appreciate Marshad working on web teams, and I think it'll be a great platform to have people interact with each other. And for Discord, Tori, you can set up the restrictions. I think most departments have like restrictions on who can be admitted to the group and who cannot be. So if the way the channel is set up in a way where people need invitation from us and need our approval to join it. But yeah, I mean, Teams is a better option, I guess, because it's controlled by UMBC.
Some good discussions. Are there any other announcements? Siri?
Sorry, I just had a question to clarify. So we have to do our stipend review committee form, and I think there was another one mentioned. Or was that it?
Stipend review committee is weekly.
Yeah.
A branch, well, I guess board for us is submitted monthly.
Okay.
Yeah. For I think Department of Extended Connections. I don't remember what department, but yeah, Pooja, they're every 21st of the month. So
Yeah, and that's something you do as a body. Like, it's a finance board report that you then submit to the executive branch.
C.
Any other announcements? I see here no announcements, so we can move on to adjournment. For final roll call, I recognize that Aaliyah is present, Liam is present, Pooja is present, Rahman is present, Acha is present, Joshua is present, Siri is present, and Victor is present, as well as ex officio members Candice, Tori, and Rashad, as well as a member of the undergraduate population. I adjourn this meeting at 7:49 p.m. and we can begin past the gavel once Candice stops the recording.